Hey everybody, Tim Holmes here again. You guys will know that by now that I'm the author of Peanut Butter and Dragon, Splash Fin Toothy Grin, and of course my newest title, The Reno Buzz. And these stories were originally made-up bedtime stories for my boys, and we decided we liked the stories so much we turned them into real books. And so one of the other things I love to do is I've taken that recipe from those bedtime stories and we created Start a Story Young Writers Workshop. And Start a Story Workshop is something I travel to schools and Scouts and Guides troops, and we do birthday parties even. We take groups of children and we have them collaborate on a story together. And they share their ideas, they vote for their favorites, they combine ideas, and at the end of 90 minutes, we've created a children's story. And during these story times on Facebook Live, we've been sharing those children's stories. Because every once in a while, not for all of the Start a Stories, but every once in a while, we'll create a limited edition copy of the story the children create at the workshop. Now, tonight's story, Night of the Werebickens, is a little bit spooky, but I want to warn you in advance, everything turns out okay, and it's actually a lot more goofy than it is spooky, but it is a little bit spooky. But everything turns out okay. You'll see. Lots of silly noises in this one. But you'll see that we've got our cover done up, we've got the Start a Story limited edition stamp, and we have their author photo on the back. This one was actually written by the 125th Nepean Beavers. That's who made this story up. And you'll be hearing that story tonight. Now, I got another warning about this story. This story is really wacky. It's out there. Sometimes you do these workshops and you get fantastical stories. Like Elizabeth and the Out-of-Control Garden. Elizabeth and the Out-of-Control Garden, there's strange things growing in a garden. It's just kind of wacky that way. And then we have Cookie Needs a Friend, a very sweet story. And then we have a crazy, wacky adventure. It's Raining Burritos. Now, I mentioned these three because they're all very different. And really, every time we do a workshop, it's very different. But these three are so different, and they're definitely ones that we've done at Storytime here on Facebook Live before. So you can actually go back in the archive if you want more story when we're done tonight, or maybe you want another story and I'm not doing it tomorrow night. You can go back and check my video archive for the other story times and check that out. The other thing you can check out, if you want to get creative and start making your very own story, is you can check out last Sundays. Every Sunday morning we've been doing story starters, and I walk you through a simple way to get a story started. And we have an image and a couple of sentences, a story starter, and we've had children anywhere from age 6 to age 10. Over the last couple of weeks, they're creating stories. I would love to see you create a story from this past week's story starter. You still have time. You can make that story this week and send it to me. And on Saturday, this Saturday, we're doing another story time at 7 p.m. here on Facebook Live. Hopefully, one of you guys will have sent me a story, or two of you guys, or three of you ladies. Someone will send me a story and I'll get to share that with everybody. I think that would be really neat to do. So, without further ado, we have this night's story time is Night of the Werebickens. And again, written by the 125th Nepean Beaver Scouts. These guys were really wacky, and they were very excited about this story. Now, again, I'll remind you, as we read through this story, one of the things that happens when we create the story is that we leave the art pages blank so that the children who get these limited edition books can continue their creativity. So what that means for you tonight is, as I read through the story and act it out, I need you guys to use your imaginations and make them as big as possible. And I need you to imagine all the characters and creatures and places, and you'll go to bed tonight with lots of silly ideas in your head. So here we go. The Night of the Werebickens. Sophie and her brother George Washington had always wanted a pet beaver. Their mom and dad always said, "No one gets a pet beaver. What about a cat?" So Sophie and George Washington decided, well, they're going to have to make their own pet beaver. Now they gathered gears and spare parts from a junk box in the garage labeled Dad's Useful Junk. They pulled down a brown furry vest from their Halloween trunk. and they mixed ingredients into a bottle, following a recipe from Grandma's potions book. Now, they built a skeleton, wrapped it in fur, and they poured on some potion. Just a little bit. There was lots left in the bottle. But nothing happened. Then, just when they thought they had failed, splash! The beaver was alive. Sophie and George Washington heard their parents coming. They pushed their new beaver under George Washington's bed. George hopped into his bed and Sophie hopped into hers. Their parents said, "Lights out, you busy beavers." They kissed them on the forehead and they closed the door. With the lights off, they could see the full moon outside. George Washington's bed began to shake. Sugar, 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 sugar. And his bed rumbled and bumped. And he turned on a flashlight and slowly looked under his bed. Their beaver had changed. It crawled out from under George Washington's bed. It had grown a beak and wings and chicken feet. Buck, buck, arr! It grabbed the potion bottle, jumped out the window, and wobbled down the street. Sophie and George Washington looked at each other with wide eyes. "Was that our beaver?" asked Sophie. Was that a chicken?" asked Sophie. I think it was a Werebicken," said George Washington. They agreed that they had to get him back. So Sophie and George Washington jumped out of their window and chased the Werebicken down the street. And he was fast. They lost track of him. They listened in the quiet night and heard chickens clucking. Sophie spotted their Werebicken going into the grocery store, and they saw all the people run out. Sophie and George Washington walked in quietly, and they listened. They could hear grumble, 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 thwack, bark, bark, arr! Sophie and George Washington found the Werebicken and saw that he had eaten 5,052 cups of applesauce, and he had gotten very round. The Werebicken saw them and said, "Bark, bark, arr!" Then he waddled out of the store as fast as he could. The Werebicken lost its balance and it fell through the front window of a dog pound, and all the dogs escaped in a dog stampede running loose down the street. Row, 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 row. George Washington whistled really loudly. Oh, that was a terrible whistle. Let me try that again. That's all I got. George Washington whistled really loudly, a lot louder than I did. And all the dogs stopped and then came rushing at him. Sophie was ready with dog treats that she'd found in the dog pound cupboards. The dogs were happy and they curled up in their cages quietly. Sophie and George Washington caught up to the Werebicken. They knew they had to take him where he wouldn't cause any more trouble. Their dad's cabin. They rolled their large applesauce-filled Werebicken to the docks and paddled to their dad's cabin across the lake. Sophie and George Washington got the Werebicken inside the cabin, but were so tired when they sat down to rest, they fell asleep. When they woke up, they were tied up with ropes. Uh-oh. They seemed to be underground, and they were surrounded by 101 Werebickens. Uh-oh. "Applesauce," their Werebicken said, pointing at them. "Bark, bark, arr!" said all the other Werebickens. "He must have used the potion to make more Werebickens," said Sophie. "I think they want to make applesauce out of us. We're doomed," said George Washington. Then they heard splashing and thumping above them. A long green neck with a big mean face poked its head into the underground cave. And it winked at Sophie and George Washington, and then it roared at the Werebickens. Roar! The Loch Ness Monster pulled Sophie and George Washington safely from the underground lair. The Werebickens chased them. The Loch Ness Monster scooped up the Werebickens with its long neck and carried them across the lake to an apple orchard. The Werebickens lived happily there for quite some time, making their own applesauce and calling out, "Book, book, ow!" The end. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was tonight's story, The Night of the Werebickens. And this, of course, was written by the 125th Nepean Beaver Troop. They did a wonderful job at a Start a Story Young Writers Workshop putting that story together, and then I created this limited edition book to make sure they held on to that story for a long time to come. Now, if you feel like creating, and right now we can't be a part of a Start a Story workshop, well, you can still create by visiting timholmes.com. Boom, 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 right there. timholmes.com, and you can visit the download section. There's lots of crafts and worksheets where you can begin a story on your very own with some simple choices. And you can build a very simple story, or you can build more and more and more and more on top of it and make it very complicated and adventurous and turn it into a chapter book. That's completely up to you guys, but it's a great place to start. Now, the other thing you can do on my website, of course, is you can go to the bookshop and you can pick up a copy of Peanut Butter and Dragon, Splashman, Toothy Grin, or the Reno Buzz, and you can ask for it to be autographed any way you like, and I'll mail it right out to you guys. Now, guys, if you like what's happening here at Tim Writes on the Facebook page, we love the Facebook Live stuff. If you like what's happening on timholmes.com and you see all the great stuff there, tell 3 people. Help me out. Spread the word. We really want to get as many people creative as possible while we're staying home and staying safe. Tell 3 people that don't know about me what's going on at timholmes.com, about the free downloads. Tell them about our Facebook Live times that we're having these weeks, and have them join in the fun with you. Guys, thanks for tuning in tonight for our story time. It's a bit of a lighter week. I'm not on Facebook Live as much as I have been the last few weeks, working on a couple of big projects, one of them being trying to put together a virtual version of Start a Story Workshop, and that information is going to be coming out soon, so you'll know that you can join in a virtual version very soon. But we're not quite done making it perfect, so we'll be in touch shortly with more information about that. Until then, you can wait to tune in. On Saturday, we'll have our story time, and the story starter that we used this past Sunday to get everybody's creative juices flowing. Malcolm and Cooper, my own sons, Malcolm and Cooper and I are working on our own creative version of our story based on that story starter, and that is one of the stories we'll be presenting this Saturday during our Storytime adventure. So, ladies and gentlemen, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and have fun creating. Have a great night. See ya.